It's time to have your say, because it's time for the Q&A. Welcome to AskSCW here on YouTube.com. Thank you for choosing the channel and choosing the video. Please subscribe right now. Leave in the comments in the comment section. Please like and share the video as well. Answering your questions today, we've got based on WWE, AEW, NXT, and much more. If you want to be involved on the next episode, then you can follow me on social media and you can drop the hashtag AskSCW on those, or you can even drop a comment with your question here on YouTube. As long as you leave the hashtag AskSCW, I know to answer your question in the next video and give you a shout out. Well, without further ado, let's get our first question this week, which comes from Jonesy Chats Wrestling, and he asks if Britt Baker should be the next AEW Women's Champion. Yes, Britt Baker, in my opinion, should be the next AEW Women's Champion. You look at her time in AEW, she's been fantastic throughout, and of course, her stock is just rising all the time, and since she turned heel about a year ago, her character work is second to none. She's, in my opinion, on a different path to everybody else in the rest of that division. It's so unfortunate that she got injured last year. I think that really stalled the momentum and the actual opportunity of her becoming champion sooner. But now we've got sort of round to this year, in the last couple of weeks, the unsanctioned match with Thunder Rosa. Absolutely amazing match. Arguably one of the best matches in AEW history. A match of the year candidate as well. Britt Baker, yes, she was on a losing effort here, but she has had, she's had the better of Thunder Rosa over the entire program, and you did need to have that payoff to close the chapter of this feud. For me, I would have perhaps both of them go for Hikaru Shida as the AEW Women's Champion. I mean, you look at things right now, we don't really get so many triple threat matches in AEW, so I'd quite like to see that go down. Perhaps Britt Baker win the title that way, and then maybe you can actually get the rematch with Shida and Baker going forward after that. But Hikaru Shida, she's been champion what feels like it's been going on for about 10 months now. It's been too long. It's arguably been stale for a while now. It definitely needs a change of the guard. And when you look at someone like Britt Baker, she's good in ring. The character work is fantastic. She knows how to maximize her minutes as well. If you look at that promo this week on AEW, I mean, the fact that she could just, get over what she needed to say in a couple of minutes, feel like the most incredible thing on the show, calling out Tony Khan, and also, having a dig at Mick Foley and actually coming off with real heat at the end of it. This is someone that should be the face of the women's division. It is time to change that championship over, give it to the Dr. Britt Baker, because her character work, her in-ring style, everything about Britt Baker screams star, and it feels like it's been far too long since she's even been in the conversation to be the AEW Women's Champion. I thought we were going to go in that direction when we had the Eliminator Tournament not so long ago. That didn't work out. I found that bemusing, to be honest. But now you look at things coming out of this last couple of weeks, there's a lot of momentum now right on her side. It feels like things are red hot for Britt Baker right now. And I think it's time to pull the trigger. Let's get Britt Baker on the next pay-per-view as your next AEW Women's Champion. Because as well, Thunder Rosa, she's a fantastic talent, but she is assigned to NWA. I think we need to focus on the AEW side of things. We need to get those women at the top of the card right now. So for me, Britt Baker, it is important she's pushed to the top, and it's important she's pushed as your next AEW Women's Champion. I genuinely believe that Britt Baker can take the AEW Women's Division to the next level. Next question coming from Austin Whitley. When do you see Cesaro going after WrestleMania? It's a very interesting question, this one, because a lot of it hinges on what happens to Cesaro at WrestleMania. Does he defeat Seth Rollins, or does he lose to Seth Rollins? That's very interesting. I'm going to go on the idea that he wins that match, because the whole idea of that storyline is that it's wasted potential. Cesaro is someone that should have been a bigger deal than what he is, and he's not quite got there over the years. And Seth Rollins feels like the perfect opponent that could put over Cesaro and take him to that next level. So there's two directions I could see going. I don't see him going straight to the WWE Championship or Universal Championship. I think it's probably a bit too soon for that. But I think Money in the Bank certainly is one that could be a potential. I think he should definitely be in the lineup. He should be in the Money in the Bank ladder match this year. I think that would be quite cool to see as a future star of the company. But I think a more likely destination could be to go for the Intercontinental Championship. You've got the likes of Apollo and Big E feuding over that championship right now. I think Cesaro against either of those guys after WrestleMania would be a fun and interesting feud. And if you can get Cesaro as the IC champion for, let's say, I don't know, a period of 3 or 4 months this year, we can push Cesaro in the next 12 months to be in a position at WrestleMania where he is going for the championship. We have to build things slow and steady, but the SmackDown side, they're doing very well at building new stars. I can think of 4 or 5 potential stars that could be made on SmackDown at the moment, and Cesaro certainly is one of them in the conversation. It will be interesting to see what happens to him at WrestleMania and what happens throughout, but Money in the Bank is certainly one option. I think the Intercontinental Championship, though, is a more likely destination. Speaking of Cesaro, he's on the first question here from Noob and Co of 3. Do you think Cesaro will break the 22 swing at WrestleMania 37? What is the current status of Bayley and Charlotte Flair heading into WrestleMania 37? And what happens if Asuka drops the Raw Women's Championship at WrestleMania 37? And what will become of her post-Mania? 3 very interesting questions there. I actually was going to save this for my predictions, actually. So it's a great question you bring up here with Cesaro. Yes, I do think he is going to break that at WrestleMania. I'm pretty sure he's done 30 before when he did the King of Swing gimmick a few years ago. But yeah, Seth Rollins is making a big deal of it being 22 times. He's been spun around a few times. It's definitely been a big integral part of this storyline. I definitely think so. I think it'll be more at WrestleMania. How many more? We'll have to wait and see. I'd love it if he could make 37, but I might get dizzy just watching it. But maybe it's a bit unrealistic. But I certainly think 22 will be broken. As for Bayley and Charlotte Flair, well, Charlotte Flair, it remains to be seen. A lot of rumours been going on around her right now. I mean, there was rumours she was going to be added to the SmackDown Women's Championship. There's arguably time, because she's a Raw superstar, to be added to the Raw Women's Championship. She may not be on the card at all at WrestleMania. We'll have to wait and see what's going to happen. Of course, she has been off due to COVID, so I suppose it depends when she's got the all clear to go. I think Andrade did give the clear that she would be good from this week. We'll have to wait and see if she does turn up on Raw. I certainly wouldn't be surprised if she's a last minute addition to a championship match at WrestleMania. For me, I think that would be more than likely. As for Bayley, I think the Women's Battle Royal is probably the most likely destination. I want Bayley in a match at WrestleMania. I think she deserves it. If you want my honest opinion, we used to have Raw versus SmackDown matches all the time, a showcase match at WrestleMania. I would do Bayley against Charlotte Flair. I think that would be a fun match to see. These two, yes, they've wrestled a lot before, but I think they have good chemistry. And the fact is, well, Bayley being the heel right now, Charlotte being the face, could add a fun dynamic. And I mean, both of them deserve a singles match, a real opportunity at WrestleMania. But from what I understand, the Battle Royals are coming back this year at WrestleMania. Bayley would be a strong candidate to win the Women's Battle Royal if that's to go down, or she could be the runner-up that helps build a new star at the end. I want to give a shout out to TNT just before I move to the last question, because TNT made a great suggestion in a comment of one of my videos this week in suggesting Bayley and Carmella, they are best friends. They're very good friends off air. They have had a rivalry previously over that friendship as well. Why not? Neither of them are doing nothing. Why not they go for the Women's Tag Team Championships? Come back. It could be like Bay Miller or something. I think it was a fantastic suggestion from TNT. I would love to see it. I mean, of course, the role model gimmick, we're speaking quite a bit about role models so far in the video today, but Bayley is that, Carmella being fabulous. Both of them feel like they're being held back and not got any direction, come together and lead that tag team division. I think that'd be pretty awesome. I'd like to see that. So that could be another direction we could go, because, I mean, right now, the SmackDown Women's Championship, it should remain Sasha and Bianca Belair, in my personal opinion. As for Asuka, well, I mean, if she does lose the championship, I mean, my feeling of it would be that she'd go for a rematch. I don't see that she would be just completely out of the picture straight away. I think Asuka would have an idea of trying to get a redemption story. I mean, that would be fun to see anyway from a viewer perspective. But after that, I'm not sure. I mean, particularly if it does go to Rhea, if Charlotte does get added and it does go to her, you do wonder what would happen with Asuka at that point. Maybe she goes a bit lower down the card. I mean, she has been champion for a long, long time, so maybe it's not the worst thing for her to have a bit of break from the main event scene. But as long as she's used in some capacity in a meaningful storyline, it doesn't really matter if she has the championship or not. I mean, she could go into a feud with Shayna Baszler or Nia Jax. I mean, you've kind of got that dynamic going on right now, especially with the fact that she had the awful kick to her that put her out of action, made her lose a tooth. And it kind of was quietly dropped this week, wasn't it, with Asuka and Baszler? So maybe they could revisit that as well. So there's definitely some avenues and alleyways. We'll have to see what's going to lead to at WrestleMania. But if I had to predict right now, I kind of think Asuka might retain at WrestleMania. But we have 2 weeks to go, so let's see where the story goes before I make a full prediction. Lorenzo Carrillo with another 3 fantastic questions coming up for us now here on Ask SCW. Is WWE ruining Jeff Hardy's last run in WWE? How would you fix it? Do you think WWE is missing all the long-term booking in this year's WrestleMania? And which Raw or SmackDown stars will come out of WrestleMania with momentum that brings them to the main event of the card? 3 fantastic questions there. Jeff Hardy, we're touching that very first. I don't want to say ruining, but certainly since he went to Raw, his momentum has been completely dropped. He was going from main event programs on SmackDown, or certainly higher level programs, upper mid card. He had that rivalry with Sheamus that went on for a long time. He's come to Raw since he lost to Lars Sullivan in like 2 minutes, had a throwaway tag team with Riddle for a short time. What seems to be a never-ending feud with Elias. It just has seemed like with Jeff Hardy that he's been losing a lot of matches, and every time he's on Raw it just feels a lot less important. To think that last year one of my favourite matches had Jeff Hardy in at Clash of Champions in September. He was a part of the Triple Threat ladder match with AJ Styles and Sami Zayn. Incredible match. And where's he been since? He's completely fallen down the pecking order. I just feel that Jeff Hardy, a lot of his best work has always been on SmackDown. I think it was a big mistake to put him to Raw. I think he would do much better if he was on SmackDown. I think he'd be at least in the mid-card conversation, maybe along the Intercontinental Championship line, that sort of area. I think would work quite well. An easy fix is a way to bring back the old theme music, because fans would get right behind that, and of course there'd be a lot of energy with Jeff Hardy. But I want to see a different side to the Jeff Hardy character, and one thing I'd like to see, and I discussed with George on Jonesy Chats Wrestling on one of his videos very recently actually, we were discussing about Jeff Hardy, and he suggested the idea of the Willow character coming into WWE. And I must admit, personally, I wasn't a big Willow fan back in the TNA days. It wasn't really for me, but the concept of Willow, I like the idea that Jeff Hardy is always full of lots of colour. He's always got like the bright face paint and obviously the ring attire and stuff. Jeff Hardy can go in that sort of that Sting method of how Sting was in the 90s, the pure black and white, and you know, almost have that kind of darker edge to his character. Not quite a Willow, not quite a Brother Nero, but certainly a different element of Jeff Hardy that could be quite interesting to see, and that would be fun to go in with some of those other kind of type characters in WWE. I know that Jeff Hardy's always wanted to go against The Fiend since The Fiend character evolved, and I think that that could be a fun twist of how The Fiend could change up Jeff Hardy and we could kind of get that dynamic. The only problem with that right now is the fact that The Fiend is on a completely different storyline and direction of his own with Randy Orton, and to be fair, Jeff Hardy's not even near his level in the conversation. So a lot needs to change with Jeff Hardy, but at the moment it just does feel a shame, because yeah, 6 months ago he felt a lot more important than he does now, and unfortunately he's just jobbing every week on Raw, sometimes not even on Raw. It is a bit sad to see. So I don't want to say WWE's ruining it, but they definitely can have better ideas and plans for Jeff Hardy, in my opinion. As for storylines with WrestleMania, yes, it's felt a bit rushed this year, hasn't it? I think the most storylines have kind of evolved from Elimination Chamber onwards, so we're talking February at best. Some have felt very rushed and last minute and thrown together. You could argue this week the panic button has been hit on both Raw and SmackDown to actually say, look, we need WrestleMania matches. I think Fastlane, it just proves it was a speed bump. It got in the way. So for me personally, I think they need to do away with that pay-per-view next year. And trying to build things a bit longer term would be nice to see. Now, I'm going to give a shout out quickly to Rated R for Wrestling, because I was on his channel yesterday reviewing a retro WrestleMania. It was WrestleMania 9, which arguably is one of the worst WrestleManias of all time, which kind of makes it all the more fun to review as well. So go and check that video out if you haven't seen it already. It's a lot of fun. There's 4 of us on there. There's Rated R, Jonesy Chats Wrestling, and Non-Stop Wrestling Chat as well. We all discuss our feelings of WrestleMania 9, but I watched everything on the build-up. So I watched all the Raws from the start up until WrestleMania 9 to go and do that review show. And even some of the lower card matches, the build was there from the start of January. You had Doink and Crush that was being booked from the beginning of the year, and that was like match 3 on the card. It wasn't even a major match. Some of the matches, you know, they did start building as it got to onwards February, but a lot of things were in place in motion from January. It feels that a lot of, you know, plans back then were made a lot sooner. And of course, I mean, Kurt Angle made a quote on one of his podcasts where he said that when he was in the company the first time, usually by the end of the year, you knew what your WrestleMania direction was going to be, where it felt more and more in the second run of the company, the latter time, the last few years, that things were being booked more and more last minute, and it seems to be becoming a more reoccurring theme in recent years. So yeah, I do agree with you. I do think that some of the storylines have been like that. It is a shame to see, because I prefer long-term direction and long long-term booking. I like the idea that you get through one storyline and you've already got the planned direction of what leads for that superstar next. It's very key to see. We talked about Cesaro earlier in this video and the idea of what could lead if he was to defeat Seth Rollins, and then the idea from there you can say, right, okay, we beat Seth, do we go for Money in the Bank, do we go for the IC title, what is the next part of the story, what's the next layer to get Cesaro to that next level? And there's a number of superstars that you could do that with in WWE. It just needs some long-term booking. Yes, injuries happen, circumstances help, the pandemic's happening, things can change on the fly, but have a plan B, have a plan C, or have something where you can hold something back, put a placeholder in and go back to that, and you can link things back in afterwards. It is possible to do. It just feels at the moment that WWE isn't doing that. They seem to change their minds a lot, and that's what leads to what we've got right now. Some of the stuff is decent. I mean, I think SmackDown has been more organised than Raw. Particularly, I think, when you look at things now with Daniel Bryan being included in the Triple Threat, that's been brewing since Elimination Chamber. I mean, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn seems to have skipped a few weeks, but that did start Elimination Chamber as well. You know, Cesaro, Seth Rollins around that time as well. So things have been brewing, have been building themselves together, but certainly it does feel at a different pace than what we got it back in the day. Certainly things felt more organised, and it felt like there was more of a plan of where the destination was going and further on in that storyline. Your last question, people that could actually benefit from WrestleMania. I've mentioned Cesaro being one of them. I think he will be one of them, but I think the main one is going to be Kevin Owens. I mentioned Money in the Bank already in this video. KO suggested about Money in the Bank actually on Talking Smack this past week, and I do think KO needs to be. He should have been the one that won it last year, but of course he took some time off after WrestleMania, so didn't quite materialise. But this year, I think it's important because KO is he's that upper mid-carder main event waiting to happen. We sort of get him there, and he's at that last step of the ladder, speaking of the ladder match, and all of a sudden he goes to grab the brass ring and something just stops him getting to that top level. I think Money in the Bank is the thing that can bring him back there, and I think he certainly is one of the people that would really benefit going higher up the card for the WrestleMania. Especially, I mean, depending on who it is, it could be Roman Reigns as Universal Champion, it could even be Edge. I mean, can you imagine Kevin Owens against a heel Edge? That could be a fun match to see as well. So lots of possibilities, but to give an answer, Cesaro could be one. I definitely think Edge will be another. And the winner of the Intercontinental Championship, I do think that person will probably prosper as well, obviously holding the championship. And let's say, if at the moment, I think Apollo could be the one that benefited. Big E, I think, will move up the card. So those are the people at the moment I could really see prospering going forward after WrestleMania. Next questions come from Mike, a Tan Habs Mike, and he says, both nights of NXT TakeOver look very good and better than WrestleMania 37. Which of the two nights has the better card? And would it make more sense for the grizzled young veterans to win the NXT Tag Team titles and have MSK chase them for the titles? Very quickly, I'll go on that question first, if you don't mind. Yes, I do think it makes a lot more sense because I think it's always more fun when the heel is the champion and the babyface is chasing. To look at tag team wrestling specifically as well, back in the Attitude Era, I was always a big Hardy Boys fan. I loved the Hardy Boys, but I always loved watching them chase and go after the championships. Whenever they held the championships, I kind of got bored after a month. And of course, I mean, there was a time where the belts were more hot potatoed and they changed every, 6 to 8 weeks anyway. But I always kind of felt like that the belts needed to come off of the Hardy Boys so that they could actually go for the chase again. It always seemed much more fun seeing the journey rather than them as the champions. So for this, bringing it to here, the grizzled young veterans for me are arguably, in my opinion, the best tag team right now in NXT, and I do think that they have potential to be one of the best tag teams in WWE. I think they are extremely underrated, and I think with the heel factor, Zach Gibson on the mic as well, I think it would be a masterstroke if they were to win those tag team championships actually at this takeover, and then MSK, like you say, can go and do the chasing, because I mean, Grizzled took MSK out of the championship match that was supposed to have a number of weeks ago as well. So yeah, for me as a dynamic, this completely works. I would go with a Grizzled young veterans. As for the NXT TakeOver nights, yeah, I mean, they look stacked. Let's not kid ourselves here. And I've put on your screen right now what you can see there is night one. Of course, you've got the NXT Women's Championship, the United Kingdom Championship from NXT UK, the Tag Team Championships we just spoke about, and of course the Gauntlet Eliminator. But look at night two here as well. We've got the NXT Championship with Finn Balor carrying Cross. We've got the Unification Cruiserweight Championship ladder match, which, let me tell you, that is going to be awesome. And of course, the winner of that potential eliminator will be going against Johnny Gargano. And let's not forget as well, unsanctioned match between Kyle O'Reilly and Adam Cole. For me, night two, edges it. I just think the matches there just look just that step up bigger. It's that one level further up here. I'm really excited for the NXT takeovers. I am excited for WrestleMania as well. For me, I'm on par with both of them. I think that this wrestling week is going to be absolutely incredible. But yeah, night 2 for me just about takes it. I mean, Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly, I think is going to be an amazing match on TakeOver. I'm really excited to see what they do with Balor and Cross. I think it was a very interesting dynamic what they did this week on NXT TV. The ladder match there has been given to NXT this year, so clearly it won't be on WrestleMania. And I do think people, if they're not so invested right now with Santos Escobar and Jordan Devlin, wait until the end of that ladder match. I think your opinion will change. And of course, Johnny Takeover. You know that match is going to be decent, whoever he's against. I right now have had to predict, I think it'll be Dexter Lumis, and we'll probably get a new champion there. But either way, I think the whole of TakeOver looks amazing. I think the stars can be made on both nights as well. But it'll be interesting to see how it's going to go down. But if you ask which night I'm looking forward to most right now, night 2 edges it. Next question coming from TNT. If you were to have a 2-night Survivor Series this year, would you be interested in seeing the titles on both Raw and SmackDown merge into one division? For example, we could have the Tag Team Championships like the New Day against the Dirty Dogs. We could have, the Women's Championships, Asuka and Sasha Banks, and of course Lashley and Reigns for the WWE Championship and Universal Championship. Fantastic question and fantastic idea. I don't think you need to do it over 2 nights, to be honest. I think you could do that in one night. I personally am in favour of it. I think there are too many championships in WWE, particularly when you look at, like you said with that. I would always keep the Intercontinental and United States Championships on each show as perhaps a designated Raw and SmackDown Championship. But the other ones, I would then use that to have the champion be able to go on both shows. I think that would make a lot of logical sense going forward, because championships feel more important when there's less of them. When there's more of them, it gets oversaturated, and it's a very easy excuse as well to build a storyline. It's very, I mean, you can argue it's a bit lazy if you want, really, because it's just, there's championships all over the place. One thing I would say, though, saying there's too many championships, I would bring in a main roster Cruiserweight Championship, just for that lower card, those smaller athletes who arguably don't have much to do. I mean, you look at like the likes of Buddy Murphy, Ricochet, Angel Garza, Humberto Carrillo, those sort of people could actually really make a Cruiserweight division work really well in WWE, going, crossing between both brands as well. You've got it already with the Women's Tag Team Championships also. So yeah, I think for me, that would work pretty well also. But to answer your question, yeah, I would merge the championships. I think it would be a fun way to do it, makes those champions seem more important. I would like to see it, but I'd love to know what people think in the comments below. Do they agree with this? I think it's a great suggestion. Last question this week coming from Straight Edge Josh. Who does the best neck breaker, excluding Ravishing Rick Rude? Well, there is no better than Rude. I mean, Rude had it as a finisher, the way he executed it, the way it was done. There is no one that's ever going to top the Ravishing one. So it's really impossible to answer that question. But 2 variations of the neck breaker that I always enjoyed, people that did. I always thought Triple H hit a good neck breaker. And I think Dolph Ziggler as well managed to always make it look most believable. I like the fact as well with Dolph Ziggler, usually for himself in the air as well when he did it. But yeah, there's no beating Rick Rude with it. But for me, as your answers for this one, I would give Triple H, and I think Dolph Ziggler deserves a shout as well. But that's all for me. Thank you for watching. As always, hope you've enjoyed AskSCW here on YouTube.com. If it's your first time watching, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and give a thumb up. Leave a comment in the comment section as well. I look forward to interacting with you over any of the topics we've discussed today. And like I say, you can drop the hashtag AskSCW, ask a question in the comments. I know to include it and give you a shout out in the next video. NXT TakeOver stand and deliver predictions will be coming in the week as well. And have you checked out my last video that I uploaded yesterday? Is WrestleMania 37, is it going to be good? Find out my thoughts right now on the screen. But that's all from me. Thank you for watching. Take care. Have yourselves a great day. You've been watching SCW here on YouTube. All the best. Enjoy yourselves and have a great day.